Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is George Rother. I am commonly known online as Movie Guy 24/7, and I am a film critic. I'd like to thank Jacob for inviting me to be an interview subject. I really hope I do him proud. I hope I'm an interesting subject. So he has some questions he wants me to answer, and I'm going to go through them. Let's see. First one is, where did you grow up? Well, that's an easy one. I was born and raised in Delaware County here in Pennsylvania. Where I live, I'm just on the outside of Philadelphia. I spent the first 15 years of my life in Upper Darby. Then we moved to Havertown, where I lived for at least 20 years. I currently reside in Clifton Heights. So that's question one. Thank you. Next question. How did I get into film? Well, I developed an interest in film at a young age. When I was 11, when my classmates wanted to see Star Wars and Star Trek and all that, I wanted to see Kramer versus Kramer and all that jazz. Of course, there was no getting past the parental R-rated movie block. They seemed to think that I still had to see children's films. But it became a lifelong passion. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. So movies, going to the movies that is, became my go-to solo activity. I got used to going by myself, and I really started to appreciate the craft and the art. And it's been a part of my life, a regular part of my life that is, since I was about 13. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew. Third question. What is the first movie I ever remember seeing and loving as a kid? That's easy. The Strongest Man in the World. That was a live-action Disney movie from 1975. It starred Kurt Russell as this college student named Dexter, and he drank this potion that made him super strong. It's the first movie I can ever really remember enjoying and laughing at. I was maybe 7 years old, and it's still actually a favorite of mine. I mean, it's goofy, it's cheesy. It's 70s Disney live action, what do you expect? But it's a lot of fun. Next question. What's my favorite movie as an adult? Well, I get asked that a lot, and I always give the same answer. It depends on what you mean. Now, if you're talking cinematic perfection, like absolute cinematic perfection, I'd have to say Casablanca. I know, it's a cliched answer, but if you watch it, it truly is the perfect movie. I mean, it's just extremely well crafted. It has everything. It's beautifully acted, the black and white cinematography. It all just fits together so perfectly. Now, if you're talking about the movie I've enjoyed the most, the one that I've seen the most times, that I get the most sheer enjoyment out of, well, that would be the 1982 version of Conan the Barbarian. I just like that movie. I think it's really cool. It's got some great special effects. And this is before CGI came in and took over. So we had puppet-operated giant snakes and that vulture. It was Schwarzenegger's first starring role, and I thought he was cool. I lost count some years ago, but I must have seen that movie at least 100 times, and I still enjoy it every time I watch it. The sequel sucks, and the remake sucks worse. But the original, that's just pure awesomeness. Next question. What are some of my favorite movies of all time and why? Well, I already answered that earlier with Casablanca and Conan the Barbarian. But I have other films that I love. Now, if you're asking about comedy, I'd have to say my favorite is A Fish Called Wanda. And that's followed very, very, very closely by Blazing Saddles. If you're talking sci-fi, it's a tie. Blade Runner 2001 Space Odyssey. Horror, The Shining and Dawn of the Dead. The original Dawn of the Dead, not that remake, which wasn't too bad, but nothing compares to Romero's original classic. Drama. I don't know, there's a lot of dramas out there. I've given this some thought. It's hard to say. Right now I'm going to go with Reds and Gandhi. I think those two films are tremendous. And I guess along those same lines, I'd also have to go with Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. So there's a whole lot of movies that I love. Now, I have a personal affection for crummy B movies. You know, those lousy exploitation movies that used to play at the grindhouse theaters and the drive-ins. And I'm on a kick right now. With this COVID-19 stay-at-home crisis, I've really been doing it up with crummy exploitation flicks. Like today, I did a double shot of Italian exploitation. The Inglourious Basterds, the original one from Enzo Castellari, not the Quentin Tarantino quasi-remake. And I followed that up with Cut and Run, directed by Ruggero Deodato, who did Cannibal Holocaust. I'm sure some of you gorehounds out there have seen that one. Kind of a precursor to the Blair Witch Project in terms of found footage horror. So that's a long answer to your question of what are some of my favorite movies. Oh, I haven't even named some of my favorite exploitationers. Well, I like Night Patrol, that really lousy Police Academy knockoff with Linda Blair and Billy Barty and the Unknown Comic. I think that's funny. I like The Annihilators. That's a cheap vigilante flick about 4 Vietnam vets who go to Atlanta and clean it up. It came out on the heels of Death Wish 3 in 1985. That's another great one. Hey, Charles Bronson, he rocks too. I should have mentioned that in the previous question. So, I have a lot of movies that I really enjoy. It would take way too long to list them all, but I've given you some.